Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Within Range Coaching Podcast. I'm Ranger, a certified holistic success coach, and in this podcast, I break down the journey entrepreneurs face as they start their organizations, overcome roadblocks in their way, and create an impact that lasts. We talk with entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and purpose-driven community members just like you. Together, we learn how to grow our impact and develop ourselves as the people behind the mission. My intention is to help more people. And remember, if you're curious about expanding your impact, growing a community, or defining your mission, vision, or values, we can chat off the record. You can find my info in the show notes or at my website, withinrangecoaching.com. We're also looking to build our sponsor community with organizations and individuals who align with our values of fearless innovation, social responsibility, and courageous candor. If you're interested in helping us highlight individuals doing great work in the world and share these values, reach out to me directly at ranger@withinrangecoaching.com. I know you're just as eager to get started as I am, so let's jump right in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Within Range Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Ranger, and today we have a truly special conversation lined up just for you. We're diving into the world of Renaissance fairs, community building, and the incredible power of giving back. Joining us is Daris Gibbons, the executive producer of the Medieval Mayhem Renaissance Fair in Arizona. In this episode, Daris shares her journey of creating an immersive educational experience that brings joy to people of all ages while also supporting a cause that's close to her heart, the Mountain of Hope Foundation. Get ready to explore how passion, creativity, and philanthropy come together in the most magical of ways. Let's jump right into the conversation. We are joined today by Daris Gibbons. Daris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Ranger, thank you for having me on. I definitely appreciate your time and your mission. So it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that. And I mean, people have already been able to tell by the intro and the thumbnail and all that kind of fun stuff, but you are the executive producer for Medieval Mayhem
Renaissance Fair.
Renaissance Fair. There we go. Okay. So the Medieval Mayhem Renaissance Fair, which was the first Renaissance Fair I've ever attended. And I volunteered at, the House of Voodoo reptile booth while I was there. So I got to see, kind of firsthand as not only an attendee, but kind of, I guess, behind the scenes. It's like
a little bit of behind the scenes. Yep.
It's like not even behind the scenes of the event, but like behind the scenes of a small portion of the event. So it was like behind the scenes. It was weird. But yeah, thank you for coming on today, because I know you guys have a nonprofit aspect that you guys raise money for a few different nonprofits. And I'd love to just kind of hear a little bit about what you do. But if you could just go ahead and start off with what your intention for today's episode is and a little bit of background on yourself, I'd appreciate it.
Well, background on myself. I was raised as an only child by a woman who owned her own advertising and public relations firm. And then my stepdad was in radio and sales. But with that came a lot of events. So I did events all through growing up. It wasn't an obvious field for me to get into until my husband. I was working as a massage therapist in a little tiny business that was a nursery, a little coffee shop, and then there were some outbuildings for people who were doing other types of businesses but needed a place to do them. So I was practicing massage out of one of the outbuildings, and we were looking for a way to promote that venue. And I asked my husband for suggestions, and he said, well, why don't you do a Renaissance fair? Famous last word. All right. So we just wrapped up our 17th year. And over the course of time, as the event grew, my husband and I are very passionate about education. And the first event was done for fun. From there on out, it kind of became what we would call today an immersive educational experience. So one of the things that we're big on is the trades. And so we love sending people out. We've got blacksmiths out there. We've got people weaving, spinning wool, weaving fabrics, making things right on site. Right next to your booth, I guess a couple booths away, was Howard Noble, who does armory, and he makes armor the old-fashioned way. He pounds that metal cold. And then with him was Noah, who does wire wrapping and jewelry that was incredible. But all these things are done by hand. So we want to give props to all the trades out there, which goes along with why we started our foundation. We're education-based nonprofit foundation, and we encourage lifelong learning. And one of our taglines is, not all education looks the same. So not everybody's cut out to go to college. We're a family of tradesmen. And over the years with the foundation, we've struggled to find donors. So my husband and I have pretty much been funding it ourselves. But this particular event is like our big gala every year as a fundraiser. And so proceeds from this event go directly to scholarships. We don't use it for operating expenses. We don't use it for anything else. It goes directly to our scholarships, which our beneficiaries are Arizona veterans and first responders who become disabled in the line of duty and their families. So what do I want people to get out of it? I guess being able to be creative, learning how to manage yourself before you can manage everything else. And that requires lifelong learning. It requires exploring different areas of self in order to learn to have the tenacity to keep going, have the ability to work with other people and teams and take ideas and suggestions, grow them. There's a lot of research in my business, or businesses, I should say, because I handle the production, but I also am the executive director for the foundation. So it's nonstop.
That's amazing. Yeah, it sounds like there's so many different facets and things that you wouldn't even really think of when it comes to a Renaissance fair. I mean, kind of from the outside, like very removed from it when you're not in the weeds, I guess. But I guess to kind of just go back, so you're on your 17th year. Can you re-explain why your husband suggested it in the first place? Like, have you always been in Renaissance fairs, or?
We are Rennies. And we had moved from Phoenix to Show Low, and we had not been to the Arizona Renaissance Festival in several years. And we're of the mind, any excuse to dress up. So, yeah, that's kind of where that inspiration came from, was we missed going to the Arizona Renaissance Festival. And since then, we've been to several other festivals around the country. And while the event is known across the country and literally has seen international waters, we were sponsors for the first Renaissance-themed cruise back in, I can't remember when. It was like 6 or 7 years ago. So we were sponsors for that, and we got to actually go on a cruise, our first honeymoon, and make connections. And it was a working cruise, but it was fun.
Hey everyone, just a quick message. You know that my mission with this podcast is to share stories of influence and impact so that we can help more people help more people. But to do that, I need your support. Please rate, review, and share this podcast. If I could ask for just one favor, it's to just leave a review. It takes about 10 seconds and a few clicks, but it means the world to me and could inspire someone else to make a difference. Thank you so much. Now back to the show. The other thing I wanted to ask you about with the Renaissance Fair, the way that you're kind of describing it, because I know we talked a little bit before we hopped on the recording, but you mentioned that a lot of it is improv, or that's something that you're very much familiar with. And it reminds me, I did an interview with the Santa Breckenridge. They're a married couple out of Mississippi that do Santa and Mrs. Claus together. And, they went to Santa school. They did all this crazy. They tell me that as soon as they step into, on stage in the arena, whatever Santa said it was.
In character.
When they're in character,
as soon as
it's
they get
like,
in character.
You prep for it, but as soon as you're in front of a kid, it's all improv. Like,
Hmm.
is that kind of how it feels with you guys too? Like you kind of train beforehand, or how do you kind of develop those characters?
Yeah, we kind of developed the characters. SCA, Society for Creative Anachronisms, is probably the best known group that does historical recreations. So with us, my character, Bronwyn Hawke, is a Scottish Viscountess. So our event website tells the whole backstory on Wyvertonshire and how Vikings saw a lady across the field while he was raiding her village and stole her away. And there's a big long story behind it. So you kind of come up with the backstory and you imagine, okay, if I were this real person, how would I react? What would I say to people? So that you actually, it's almost like a personality shift. You become this character, and then everything that happens, questions and people improving and playing and harassing on the field and that kind of thing just kind of comes naturally after that, once you've spent some time with your character, if you will. I've only had 5 official acting lessons, I think. And unfortunately, I don't have time to take more. I would love to, because it's a lot of fun. But yeah, you just kind of immerse yourself in your character and act as though they would act in any situation.
Gotcha. So I guess I don't do like character, I don't do cosplay or dressing, like other than like, little things, one-offs here and there. So like for you, like what does it take to kind of do that shift in your mind when you're in character? Is it the outfit?
Initially, it took a lot of concentration.
Okay.
To do it, and improv was not necessarily easy. But after 17 years, I can certainly go from one to the other very easily, and I can answer a patron as executive director, or I can harass the pirates and tell them they need to get back to their own little hangout joint outside the pub and leave my royal court alone. So it's just practice. It really is just practice and switching back and forth.
That's really cool. That's interesting. Kind of like putting yourself in a completely different mindset, I guess.
Yep, completely different.
Interesting. Okay.
But yet
And
still a part of you.
yeah, and it sounds like, so I guess when you're creating that character, is it like you're like researching the history of the area? Like how much of it is just kind of like you're
There's
making
some
things up and like actually basing it off of
um
real characters from history?
it's not necessarily a real character. It's I did the research on Scotland and what was going on, and this actually comes from medieval times when Vikings were running around and doing all their wonderful pillaging and whatnot. So around that time, which I'm not going to quote an era because I'm not 100% sure on it, but we do tagline the event as where 1,000 years of history comes to life, because we run from the fall of Rome to the end of the Renaissance. So, and everything in between. We're not a historical recreation. We are in the spirit of. So that's why Vikings and pirates are playing on the same field, because pirates are technically post-Renaissance. Just post-Renaissance, but post-Renaissance. But people attending don't really know that. So it's kind of based on the era and what was going on in Scotland with that population, how things were. The field that we rent from the city transforms into Wyvertonshire, which is basically Dragon County translated. And so everything there is about dragons. And that's where the fantasy kind of comes into it. But also the beliefs of the people back in those days play into it. People believed in wisps and fairies and dwarves and gnomes and elves and everything else. So that was part of the practices back in the day as far as their spirituality and their religion. And then came the Renaissance, which was the biggest religious conversion movement that has ever been. And so we combine everything together. So there's a bit of historical research, but it's always in the spirit of. And as a Scottish lady, I normally, I would not don belly dance garb, but it's hot out on that field and belly dance garb is nice and cool and moves well. So I wear it on the field. So
that's awesome. I really like the way that you kind of say that, like it's in the spirit of, because you're right. Like,
yes.
I'm no historian. I haven't hit that phase of my life yet, whatever. But,
Right.
Like you're saying, it's all these different, like the pirates, the Vikings, the fairies. Because, I mean, your background right now has the fairies. And that's what I was kind of curious about, too, is like with that, it's like that mythical realism almost. Is that like,
right? Yeah,
it's
bringing that fantasy to life for people. Yeah. We tout ourselves, one of our taglines for that is escape reality. Step back in time. You learn things, whether you're aware of it or not. You would not believe the feedback that I get. Do you know I did not know? Do you know I didn't know? And I didn't know that. So I know that we're getting education out there and expanding people's minds. And the kids, childhood is all about magic. And bringing that kind of magic to life for the kids. I mean, how many kids went crazy in the reptile tent? And they were just kind of, they were all over it. I mean, we had the fairies walking around with the snakes, and everybody loved the tortoise walking around, taking his walks on the field and stuff like that. So it brings that magic into an experience for kids and adults. Adults just don't like to admit it.
And I was going to acknowledge that as well. It's like there's so many different, like, I don't know how many of the adults are going to sit there on little steps and watch the fairies do their bubble things. But when they're walking around, they're definitely like side on, like, and like they're enjoying everything as well. Because that's kind of what I was like on first impression. It's like, oh, they have things for kids and they have things for adults. But it's all still very intermixed. Like you still see the kids like in the armory, like looking at things and learning. And that was the other thing was it's like while the entire event isn't necessarily historically accurate because there's so many different whatevers, it's like each booth is like its own little micro slice because they're going to know all the history. They're going to know all the cool, like there was was it the board game lady? They had like those old timey board games, like the original.
The Merry Merchant.
Merry Merchant.
She custom makes all those games on leather with the pieces. So you just cinch it up. You got the pouch, the game, and it literally hangs off your belt, and you can pull it out and play a game at any time. But yeah, she does a lot of historical research on the games, and they are real games that were played through many different eras by many different cultures, which that to me is amazing that she does all that. And she's also on our board of directors and does a lot for us on the board too. So she's a busy lady.
Yeah, I actually won one of the little board games from their raffle. I got it sent back home to my fiance's house, so I haven't had a chance to mess with it or play it yet, but I'm going to put her link in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Like, she would love that because that's and until you sit down and play the game, you really don't realize how much fun it is.
Yeah.
Most all of them are strategy games. So it encouraged strategic type of thinking and thinking ahead, which, is another form of learning. So it all comes, as my husband and I used to teach our kids, everything comes back to education.
Exactly. I was going to say, not all education looks the same, whether it's the board games, whether it is historical reenactments of the fighting.
Or the fighting demos, and all those guys belong to different guilds that are historically accurate. So though the weaponry may be blunted to ensure these guys can make it home and go to work on Monday. The fighting moves, the techniques, the armor that they wear, and how they fight is 100% accurate as to the time frame of when armored knights roamed throughout Europe.
Interesting. Yeah. And it's, see what I mean? It's like those like micro historically accurate things. I think that makes the whole event so interesting and fascinating. Because like even like we're the reptile people. The next to us was the bug, or there's a bug person nearby. Right next to us was the oh my goodness, the mushroom guy.
The mushroom guy, yes.
Yeah. And
what does he make? He makes a lot of tinctures, and he's got. I had one of his lion's mane infused coffees. It's absolutely delicious. But yeah, he makes a variety of things and offers locally. He takes people out on hikes to forage for mushrooms. So it's an introduction to something that was used way back in the day, but that can still be used to this day for health benefits and just even for, cooking. So yeah, it's a fun microcosm in a macro setting, if you will.
And I think that's the other interesting thing, because it's kind of like, something that I really like with the podcast or with my coaching. It's like, I want to help more people. And like, there's like that aspect of like, event organizers that allow these other vendors to come in and do their thing. Because like there's the coffee guy that's themed like the Renaissance coffee guy, basically. I was like,
Fairy Tale Coffee.
Fairy Tale Coffee.
And he was Fairy Tale Coffee when he first applied. I didn't even know he was up here. Yeah. But yeah, that was awesome. I love having Austin up there out at the event. So yeah, he's my coffee guy. and it's like, where else? First thing in the morning with the cup.
Yeah, or a few times during the day with all the other fun things he has.
Oh, yeah. He's got such a huge variety of things that he can do. It's amazing.
But yeah, it's like, where else? I mean, you could see these people at craft fairs, I'm sure, or farmers markets sometimes, but it doesn't really make sense not in a setting like this. Maybe that's just me being a little bit more closed on it, but...
Some of it is, and actually our mushroom guy does work at a local farmer's market.
Yeah.
And our coffee guy works other events, here locally as well. And it's a cute little novelty kind of in a farmer's market, arts and crafts type show. Another event that we have up here is called Sholo Days, which is a fundraiser for our local Chamber of Commerce. And that is, basically it celebrates, everything that's available up here. So like all kinds of businesses come and set up, but this is themed. And so it's actually harder to find vendors. But the other thing that we do along your lines, you wanting to help other people, is we have, and the House of Voodoo is one of them, other nonprofits that set up. We do not charge them to set up because we're a nonprofit and we need to get our name out there. So Greyhounds of the Royal Realm is one of them that teaches kids about the breed greyhounds and why they were the royal breed of choice at one time by the English crown. And House of Voodoo, all our fighters, their guilds, they are all volunteer. They spend money out of their own pocket to be there. I'm trying to think who else.
Is that the fighters? Is that Realms of History? Is that what
Realms of History? Okay. But then there's also the Adrian Empire, which is part of a group called, it's Umbria from the Adrian Empire. So, both of those groups join together. Realms of History is kind of the one that oversees all the rules and regulations, because that's way too complicated for me to get into. It was like, okay, I give you a fighting arena and you handle everything. And he's like, okay. So that's kind of how that goes. But yeah, any of those organizations are welcome to come up and join us in those fightings. So we've had members of the Society for Creative Anachronisms, and I'm trying to think. I think it was called ACL, but they've changed their name since then. I can't remember what it is now, which stood for American Combat League, and they're a little bit more aggressive, hands-on, less padding and more aggression kind of thing. But they're a nonprofit. Oh, I know there's like 3 or 4 others that I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
No, you're good. It's not a test. But no, it sounds like bringing in all these different nonprofits and these other organizations that support you in your mission, kind of, again, right, giving them a platform, giving them an opportunity to kind of show off their skills, because correct, I'm not sure House of Voodoo could throw a Renaissance fair right now. So sure they could.
No, it's complicated,
but it's hard, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Event production is not for the meat. And I will say that it's typically a team effort for most events. However, I am a one-man operation who reports to a board. So I do 98% of everything that you see on that field, I'm responsible for putting together. Everybody shows up on setup and takedown day and for the event, which I definitely can't do all by myself. But yeah, most of it is all the organizations and all that sort of stuff, behind the scenes stuff is all me. And It's a lot of work.
Welcome to the mountaintop. Are you an entrepreneur or nonprofit leader ready to make a bigger impact in the world, but aren't quite sure how to do it or even where to start? Then join the Never Peak community on School, where bold movers, shakers, and magic makers come together to achieve their dreams and support others on the way to theirs. Our goal is to help leaders change the world by first focusing on themselves, by fostering a community rooted in support and learning. My goal is to help you be more effective in your organization, achieve your biggest dreams, and make time for what really matters in your life. In Never Peak, you'll find weekly book clubs, engaging courses, weekly mastermind calls, monthly Q&As with industry experts, and networking opportunities that span the globe. Our courses and discussions cover essential topics like personal finance, work-life balance, goal setting, relationship building, business topics, and so much more. Each course is designed to support you to holistically grow yourself as the person behind the mission. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention. At the time of recording this, the community is completely free. That's right, you can get started for $0 down, but that won't last for long. All you need to do is go to school.com, that's SKOOL.com/never-peak, or hit the link in the show notes to claim your spot on the mountain. Again, be sure you get in now, because I cannot wait to see you there and witness the peaks you'll reach in just a few weeks. I bet. Could you give like a consolidated, like what? Because I'm sure the planning for the next event starts probably during the current event or well before the current event.
People ask, well, how long does it take to put that together? I said 1.5 years, and it happens every year. So yeah, you do the math on that, and I'm working on 2 years at the same time, always.
Interesting. Is it just like, I'm assuming a lot of it is like what, permits or safety kind of stuff? Because I know from my experience, anything.
Those are kind of the easy parts.
Okay.
Going through and finding vendors, recruiting vendors, making sure there's a platform that's easy for them to sign up on, getting our talent booked, and getting any like accommodations that they might need booked, drafting contracts, sending out contracts, booking time on all 4 of our performance areas. I love having the fairies there, and I hope every year that they come back. Budgeting, yes, there's planning meetings with the city, and in those is, all our first responder stuff, all our legal stuff, all getting the insurance, getting the alcohol, getting the stuff for our dry dock bar. The list is endless. So that would be a quick snapshot of, what I spend my time doing.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some listeners that are probably going, man, I would never want to do that. But then there's those few ones that are like, man, that sounds kind of fun or up my wheelhouse. Maybe not fun is the right word. But, there's people that are into
Not all of
doing
it's fun,
all the
but
organizing.
yeah.
Because it's for a greater something. Like, it's not just organizing an event for the sake of an event. It's
Right.
the fundraiser. It's the experience. It's the community that you're fostering.
Well, and a lot of people have asked, well, why do you do it if you don't get paid?
Yeah.
And it's like, I realized because I want to bring joy to people, even if it's only for a few hours. I want to bring joy to people. I love going out on that field and seeing the smiles, hearing the laughter, the little kids, seeing them run across the field, either bubbles in tow or, crawling on the ground with the tortoise, and hearing all the giggles and the screams, watching our royal court will do floggings. They're a whole other group that's volunteer as well. And they've been amazing. And so I will have to say that I would not be nearly as organized had I not joined an international association called the International Festivals and Events Association and received my CFEE certification, which is, I think they give you like 4 years to complete it. But I did it over COVID, so I completed it in 2 years. And basically, it's a condensed, intense version of a college course in event production that covers every aspect you can think of it with it. And there's a lot of support there. So when I'm having a problem or whatnot, we've got affinity groups. I've got friends that I can turn to and say, hey, what did you do about this? Got any ideas for me? And truly, it's like a family of its own. And hopefully out at Mayhem, you kind of got a sense of the family aspect of it. I mean, truly, there's a lot of Mayhem family out there. And for us, this is like a family reunion every year.
I did kind of speak to that. It was funny seeing people while we were setting up the booth. Me and one of the other volunteers that were there were kind of doing things, and everybody else was coming up and saying hi to the director and to her friends that were there too. So it was just like, wow, like that's fun. It reminded me of like,
welcome back. Good to see you.
Haven't seen you since last time. It reminded me a lot of like my county fair growing up because I was doing FFA and 4-H and stuff. So it was like every year we'd see kids that we hadn't seen since last year or families. So that's kind of what it reminded me of, was that community that everybody sees once a year.
Yeah, we have literally watched kids be born and grow up in that event. I know we've got 3-4 kids off the top of my head that have never known life without the event.
That's amazing. And that's just over the 17-year history of...
Yep.
That's so interesting.
Yep. So they've literally grown up.
How funny. That's so fun.
Yep.
Okay. So then...
And that's what it's about, is family.
Yeah. I know. That's so interesting. That's so cool. I know the girls on our way up when we were packing for everything, it's always frustrating packing for an event. But the whole time, even though they're like sweating and like kind of, cursing at the boxes, they're like, I can't wait to see blah, blah, blah. Like, I can't wait to get there. Like, let's like hurry up. We got to get there. It was just, it's so like the excitement for them was also very, it was exciting for me just to be kind of like, okay, well, packing sucks, but they still are in good spirits. So I think we're doing all right.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why for the cast we do. And when I say cast, I include vendors in that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we do the potlucks on Friday and Sunday nights, is for that camaraderie. That's where we get to know each other and build those relationships that then translate outside of the event. And then again, then there's our closing toast where we give recognition and celebrate the end to another year, look forward to the next year, and kind of close everything out on a calm, fulfilled exhale, if you will.
And a little sigh of relief as you
it's
jump
like,
into planning next
okay,
year.
we made it. It was a good event, made money or not made money. We had fun. We built relationships. And like I said, they continue on outside of the event year round.
Gotcha. And then I know that's so fun that it's like I don't know, that last little moment, it was like, it kind of felt like a very movie moment. Like, thank you to everybody doing the toast, the dancing, the huzzahs. Right. Like, it was like a fun little, it was like a really good closure, in my opinion, of the event. Because I don't know, a lot of other events I've been to, it's kind of like, well, it's 5:00 on Sunday, pack up and go home.
Yeah.
See you guys next time.
And that closing tradition actually came from our original queen. Her name was Tina Talkington, and we just lost her this last year. Before the event. It was very unexpected. So it will always be a raise a glass to her. We wouldn't have an event if she didn't meet with us after the first event and encourage us to keep going and help us keep going and build a royal court for us in those early years. So that song, A Health to the Company, is something that she started at closing for our event and will continue in honor of her and all of those we've lost over the years, because we've lost a lot of people.
I'm sure. And I think that also just, I don't know, showcases the importance of kind words from one or two people that, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the situation was with her that first year, but to have a conversation that's so impactful to the point that we're 17 years in and still going. And I mean, that's amazing.
Yep. I know she will be proud. She knew that we were still going, even though she, in her personal life, was unable to fulfill duty as queen for several years. Yeah. But I know that this event is a legacy that she leaves behind. And she offered help. She had connections in the Rennie world here in Arizona. And we basically said, yes, please. And she helped to guide us to what we are. And that's the power that one person can have. I mean, we've grown into a large enough event that, I can go to my local municipality and go, okay, here is the economic impact that this event, specifically this event, is generating for your city. Here are the people that we are reaching, across the country. One of our vendors comes from East Texas.
Wow.
And yeah, he was like, count me in. I'm here. I love it. And we were a trial for him this year. So yeah, it certainly, it just kind of goes to show that how many lives one person can touch when you just pass it on, whether it's pay it forward, pay it back. But reaching out to your fellow human in the spirit of support rather than the spirit of competition, makes a huge difference.
And I think that also, it's not just, I think but the way that I kind of see it's like that ripple effect, right? Like the stone in a pond, like it ripples out. Yep. But it's also, when that stone hits the water, other water moves, and it also creates smaller ripples all over the place. And I think that's the other thing too. It's like the power of one person to create that impact, but also to empower others to continue to make that impact.
Exactly.
And then it goes over the entire surface of the pond and beneath, and however else you want to, I don't know, metaphors, right? But like just what you're saying, like, cross country, like country lines, state lines, like all over the place. Like this is an event that's been it's not just the whatever 40-ish, I don't know, I'm making up numbers, vendors that show up. It's all the guests, the people that see it on social media, the people,
Yes.
it's.
Yeah, the people who, click that share button and raise that awareness. We've had, some people say, oh, well, Renaissance fairs aren't my thing. And it's like, have you ever been to one? No. Then how do you know? And then they come out and they experience it. And they're like, I had no idea that this was so awesome. So now I'm going to date myself. There was a shampoo company called Breck back in the day. And their commercial was, and they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. And they would split the screen and, show more of the same girl. But yeah, that's how it works. And, we definitely try to stay on the side of, and one of the things that makes it harder is people who have a bad experience will tell everybody. People who have a good experience are less apt to actually share that information. And so a lot of people have good experiences, but they don't think to share that. And I think that's where it really matters is, we're so quick to criticize and we are so quick to condemn, something that we don't like or we don't understand or we don't agree with, as opposed to focusing on, okay, well, I don't necessarily like this, but what do you like? And people know what they don't want. They don't know what they do want a lot of the time.
There was a fellow in one of my networking clubs back in Modesto in California, and he owned a cleaning company. And one of the things that he would say to us is like, my job is to make sure that nobody knows that I work there. Like, if I do my job right, nobody will think about it. But if I miss one bag of garbage, if I, miss a little thing of dust on the ground, they're going to know about it. And then they're going to tell all their friends.
Right.
And that's the hardest part is when I do a good job, nobody thinks of it. And when I do a bad job, that they want to just
everybody tells you.
Yeah. And I've noticed that with myself too. It's like I go to a restaurant and it's bad. And I'm like, my first thing is I'm going to leave a bad Yelp review. But I go to restaurants all the time and I have a great experience and I never think of that. So that's something I've been trying to correct in myself is like, okay, leave a good review too. Like those are what people need. Just like I want good reviews with my coaching business, like other people want that too. So I think that that's another good thing for folks to remember that are listening right now. Like we're all trying our best to make it. Leave the good review, tell the friend, share on social media. Because that's the other thing too. Shares are free. Like and
they're priceless. They really are. They're priceless.
It's not even like I think that, if I make a post and somebody shares it, I'm going to make $1,000 sale. That's not the thing. It's like even just like seeing that as like an entrepreneur or a nonprofit leader, it's just like, okay, somebody like cares enough to share like that just helps.
Well, somebody cares enough to help us get our message out.
Exactly.
And, that's, we will do some online fundraiser type things. I know most of our board members will do a fundraiser for their birthday on Facebook. And I think it's been a few years since any of us have been able to hit our goal. I get it. The economy sucks. But the willingness to share and get the information out about the foundation and that we exist. Yeah, we need help to help the group that we're trying to target because there's a need for them. And I think that serving the people who put their lives on the line for us every day is a worthy cause. When they suffer a loss that they can no longer do their job, they deserve all the help that they can get. And government resources are limited. And so, and even we can only do, service the state of Arizona. We can't do this nationwide, at least not at this point, because we're not that big and we're not well known. So yeah, those shares, they matter. And it's not a matter of maybe the share will bring me a new donor. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But it is at least getting the little bots out there to, people who are who, ding those little Google algorithms.
Yeah, let's get the Google on our side and the SEO
Right.
and all the
Exactly.
million other things you have to know as a event person and business owner. It's overwhelming for sure.
It is very overwhelming. And, some days I got to shake my head and go, why?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? Oh, yeah. It's the happy faces. It's the little light bulbs that go on. And it's the ability to take the financial benefit of that and give it to somebody in need to help another family.
There's a saying, I think it might be a good way to kind of wrap up the podcast there, but those who say money can't buy happiness haven't given enough away. And I feel like
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's for the Post-it board for sure.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, no, Daris, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I think that there's a lot to kind of think about in terms of, just the impact of, doing an event that means a lot to you for a cause that means a lot to you. Like, it sounds like it's checking a lot of boxes, not only the Rennie side, but also the nonprofit and giving side and the causes that matter. So I think that's really impactful and interesting.
Yeah, I strongly believe in philanthropy. Name Richard Branson, one of my heroes, mostly, and a big part of that is because he was a high school dropout, and but he was similar to me. He was a serial entrepreneur, man, and he just kept going, and nothing stopped him, and he gave back. He nurtured other people to do things. And invited and supported other entrepreneurs in huge variety of different businesses. And so when I grow up, I want to be like Richard Branson.
I love it. But yeah, awesome. So Daris, if people want to follow along on the journey of Medieval Mayhem and donate or attend a future event, what would be the best way for folks to get in contact with you and check you out?
For the event, the website is azmayhem.com.
Mm-hmm.
And for the foundation, there's a link on the website that will take you to the foundation website. But the name of the foundation is Mountain of Hope Foundation. And the website is mountainofhopefoundation.org.
Perfect.
Yes, unfortunately, it's all spelled out. Sorry.
And
I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it as moh.org, but it was already taken. So,
dang it. But for ease of listeners, I put everything in the show notes, so it'll be down there, and folks will be able to easily check it out. So,
yeah, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We have both. We're a little quiet on social media right now, just because we're gearing up for our next fundraiser, which takes place in December, which is also themed. It's called a Dickens Dinner and Dessert Auction. And so we learn all about Christmas in the Victorian era and why Charles Dickens is the father of the modern day Christmas.
Interesting. That sounds like a whole other episode. But awesome. Daris, thank you so much.
It's just a dinner.
It's just a dinner.
It's just a dinner.
Perfect. But yeah, no, Daris, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out.
Thank you for taking the time while you're on your journey for the interview. I appreciate your time, definitely.
Yeah, no problem at all. I'm just walking.
Aren't we all? One step at a time. Just take the next step.
100%.
You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the next step. Martin Luther King Jr.
I love it.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed our chat with Daris Gibbons and got a glimpse into the inspiring work she does through Medieval Mayhem and the Mountain of Hope Foundation. It's amazing to see how one person's passion can ripple out to create such a profound impact on a community. If you want to stay connected with Daris and learn more about the Medieval Mayhem Renaissance Fair or the Mountain of Hope Foundation, be sure to check out the links in the show notes. Remember to share this episode with friends and leave us a review if you liked what you heard. Your support helps us keep bringing you these incredible stories and helps us with our mission to help more people help more people. Until next time, remember to have fun, stay safe, and be yourself. I'll catch
catch you guys in the next episode. See ya.